I started a six-pack in 6 months journey about 6 months ago, and after I released the before and after photos, I've gotten a lot of questions from people with respect to what my dieting tips are. So I'm going to boil down my 10 secrets to dieting in this video. So the first secret is never be hungry. This is something that I made a goal at the very beginning of my program, and it's very important that you do the same as well. If your body is hungry, your body is communicating that it feels that it doesn't have enough calories either in storage or enough energy sources available to it at that point in time in circulation, that it wants to crave food. And it might be also slowing down your basal metabolic rate, which decreases the amount of energy that you're burning. So never be hungry. How do you achieve this? Well, there's a couple of things that you have to look at. One is the volume or the bulk of the food that you're eating. And the second is you have to look at the content of what you're eating. So foods that contain more protein or fat might make you feel full longer. And things that have simple carbohydrates in it or sugary items might satisfy your hunger in the short term, but in the long term, it might make you feel hungry faster. So we do have another video that talks about different food choices that you can make in terms of picking things that will keep you full for the longest. The second secret is avoid diets that have a name. So for example, the Atkins diet, the Zone diet, the Paleo diet, the South Beach diet, or more common now are the intermittent fasting diets and the keto diets. These are fad diets and they're very restrictive, and it's difficult for people to lose weight and keep the weight off long term with these diets. Most of them are successful in the short term, but they're not successful in the long term, and they're so restrictive, and sometimes they might not even be healthy because of other factors. For example, medications that you might have or health conditions that you might suffer from. So what you want to do is focus on healthy eating. It's a lifestyle change where you learn to eat better. These are sustainable changes that you can make, and you can keep the weight off over the longer periods of time than by following some of these fad diets. So eat healthy and practice portion control. The third secret is count your calories. Now, if your goal is just to lose 5 or 10 or even 20 or 30 pounds depending on what your starting weight is, and that's your entire goal, then you may not need to count your calories forever. But even in those cases, I would recommend that you count your calories at least for a week or two on a daily basis, so you actually understand how many calories you are consuming on average. Now, if you're trying to achieve a loftier goal, like trying to achieve a six-pack, and you want to do it in a healthy way, then it's very important that you actually count your calories. Now, in order to count your calories, you can look up specific foods on the internet. You might also have to weigh your food or use measuring cups to measure exactly how much you're eating of each food. And most foods you can look up online and find their calorie and macronutrient content. The reason that it is so important to count your calories is that you would be really surprised on your cheat days, if you will, how many calories you consume. So I was surprised to learn, for example, on certain days when we had company over or we were out at a party or something like that, on those days I would be consuming 6,000 calories. It's a ridiculous amount, and I never would have guessed in a million years that that's how many calories I was regularly consuming, and these kinds of things happen all the time. So it's very important that you count your calories, depending again what your goals are. The fourth secret is eat anything you want, but in moderation. So people have called me or texted me and said, hey, can I eat this and still lose weight? And the answer to that is always yes, you can. You can eat pretty much anything you want, but in small quantities. So eat more of healthy food to fill you, and you can still eat other things that you crave that might not be healthy as long as you do so in moderation. And you make up for those excess calories by balancing the rest of your diet around that. So the fifth secret is eat bulky, low-calorie foods. So foods that have high amount of bulk or fiber or volume. So what you have to do is you have to find foods that you enjoy that are bulky, that will fill up your stomach, but at the same time not contribute a lot of calories to your diet. So anything green, anything leafy and green is typically a pretty safe bet. So foods that I've found that I like are mushrooms. So mushrooms are very low in calories. Lettuce, different types of lettuce. Leeks are pretty good as well. So there's all kinds of different foods that are out there that are very bulky, take up a lot of room in your stomach, but don't contribute a lot to your calorie count. So you want to eat lots and lots of these. These have a number of healthy properties, but in addition to that, they will help stave off hunger. So eat lots of these, and this is how you keep from ever getting hungry. You can eat lots of these and then still enjoy in moderation small quantities of other foods that you enjoy that might not be the healthiest choices. So the sixth secret is to eat slowly. What I notice when I watch other people eat is a lot of my friends will eat very quickly. And I'll also note that they eat a lot more food than I do typically. If you eat slower, then what happens is the stomach and the brain have time to send signals to each other. And the brain will say, okay, I'm receiving food right now, let's shut off the hunger mechanism. But if you eat very quickly, then the time for those signals to travel from the stomach to the brain is not there, and so you'll feel hungry and you can eat more food. So enjoy your food, eat small, take small bites, take small amounts on your spoon every time you eat, take small amounts on your fork every time you eat, and eat over a longer period of time and chew your food very well. This will make you feel full faster, and you will tend to eat less over time. The seventh secret is to eat multiple small meals. This is important for a number of reasons. One is it helps you in terms of decreasing your hunger, but it also makes it easier for your body to process the food. And this is helpful especially if you have conditions like diabetes, where the sugar can be processed more efficiently by the body if it's not overwhelmed with large loads with every meal. So eat small amounts, but eat multiple meals. Now this doesn't mean that you eat multiple meals and go over your calorie counts. So whatever goals you set for yourself, make sure that you stay under those goals, but divide them up into 4, 5, or even 6 meals if you can get away with doing that. Have healthy snacks in between your main meals, and this will help you to eat less. You'll be less hungry by the time lunch comes or dinner comes, and you will tend to eat less for those meals. So the eighth secret is to make sure that you get enough protein. So when you're losing weight, you will lose both fat as well as muscle mass. And this is not ideal. You don't want to lose muscle mass. So in order to minimize the amount of muscle that you're losing while you're on a calorie restrictive diet is to make sure that you get enough protein. Again, this goes back into calorie counting. It might be nice to also keep track of how many proteins that you're consuming in a day. Ideally, if you don't want to lose muscle mass, you want to have at least 0.8 grams of protein per your body weight in pounds. If you're just trying to save the amount of muscle mass that you have, you want to get at least 0.8 grams per pound of your body weight. If you're trying to bulk up or build muscle, then you've got to make sure that you have at least 1 gram per pound of body weight, or even 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. And as long as you maintain this, even with a calorie restrictive diet, you will lose the least amount of muscle mass possible. The ninth secret is to get good sleep. So there are numerous studies that show that when you're sleep deprived, or if you don't have good sleeping patterns or enough sleep, that the body is in a state of wanting to conserve energy. The body makes you crave more food, and you tend to eat unhealthier, and it makes it more difficult for you to lose weight. And so you want to make sure that you get a sufficient amount of sleep. 8 hours would be typically very good for most people. Some people can get by with 6 hours, but for the majority of people, 8 hours is quite sufficient. So try to get that, because if you're doing everything else right in your diet and exercise, but you're not losing weight, one of the things you want to look at is your sleep. And are you getting enough sleep? So the 10th and final secret that I will give you guys is to practice discipline. This is actually the most important part of your weight loss and diet journey. It is the hardest thing that you will do. However, it is the most rewarding. You will feel great if you can practice discipline. So I have been out sometimes, and sometimes I have eaten maybe 5 wings at a wing place, right? Because that's all I could afford with the calorie count that I had for that day. And when I walked away after having eaten only 5 small wings, I felt amazing. I felt like a champion. If I'd eaten 10, 15 wings, the way I might normally do if I go out to a wing place, then I'd feel horrible an hour later, a day later, even a week later, that I gave in to that temptation. But the fact that I walked away after eating only 5 wings that day made me feel like a champion. The same, sometimes I've gone out and I've literally had half of a Coors Light beer. Why half? Well, I was over my calorie limit, and that's what I could afford. I wanted to have a beer because it was a sunny day out and we were sitting on a patio, but I didn't want to consume the whole thing. And while my friends made fun of me, I felt amazing that I was disciplined enough to not finish the rest of the beer. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have a beer. I've had 5 or 6 beers in one setting, but you've got to make up for the calories. So if you're at a certain point one day, you want to practice discipline. If you're at your calorie limit, you want to practice discipline. This doesn't mean that you can never cheat, but you've got to make up for it sometime that day or sometime that week. Because trust me, these cheat days will add up, and they will be counterproductive. So practice discipline every time you step away from that plate and you only eat a bite or 2 of that chocolate cake. You only have 1 beer or 2 beers or half a beer. You only have half of a Big Mac, which I've done as well. You will feel amazing. But every time you give in to that temptation, you will feel horrible for a long time. So delay that immediate gratification for longer term satisfaction. This is the most important goal. This is why diets fail, is that people fail to keep up with their discipline. And it's hard, and you're going to slide, and you're going to have places where you're not going to be able to do things. But that's okay. If you make a mistake, jump back on it the next day, the next week. So these are all the secrets that I have for you. I wish you guys all the best of luck in your diet and weight loss journeys.